Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm talking about rotational speed, how that will improve your club head speed. With a new breed of modern athletic golfers, we are seeing club head speed really climb and climb and climb. And that is basically getting all of us hobby golfers out there trying to increase our club head speed as well. In fact, there's a whole raft of new equipment that you can buy, especially kind of weighted sticks, which will actually help you to swing quicker. But the great fear I have with these weighted sticks is that they will be used incorrectly, that people will lose their complete sequence in their golf swing and start to accelerate their arms and hands without actually keeping up with their bodies, or even better, determining the club head speed through the rotational speed. What you've got to understand in a golf swing is that really the governing part of the golf swing is the rotational speed that you can achieve in your shoulders. Last time we talked about the shoulder path, so if you haven't watched that video, I shall leave a link up here. Watch that first, because you want your shoulders to be moving along the correct path. You just want them moving at speed. As a general rule of thumb, you could say that the shoulders should reach a speed, a rotational speed of around about 5 miles an hour. If you have a 5 mile an hour shoulder rotational speed, you should have around about a 30 mile an hour hand speed, depending obviously on the length of your arms and your ability to actually accelerate your arms in your golf swing. And finally, depending on the club, you will get a head speed of say 100 miles an hour. So you might have 100 miles an hour then, or a little more with the driver, and you would have a little less, or even a lot less if you only had an iron or a wedge in your hand. And this is more or less how the thing works. So in order to increase my club head speed, it makes sense I have to increase my hand speed, but to increase my hand speed and keep control over the club head, I have to increase my shoulder speed. And this is where rotational speed is so important in your golf swing. So how do you train rotational speed? Well, the first thing is to understand that the rotational speed of the shoulders to a certain extent is going to be governed by the rotational speed of your hips. Your hips are obviously attached through your spine to your shoulders. And although the speed of your hip rotation is not going to be alone governing the shoulder rotational speed, they will have to work themselves as shoulders. It will, however, block your shoulder rotation if you don't get your hips rotating slightly before the shoulders and at least as fast as the shoulders are rotating. So maybe the first thing to look at is your hip rotational speed. As we've talked about in a lot of videos, this has all to do with using ground forces. If you wanted to spin your hips around, you would flex your knees before you did it. And this is something that you want to be working on when you start building rotational speed. Getting a rotation away from your target, then flexing your knees and rotating as if in a tub, and then coming out of this angle. Now don't worry that they have this kind of feeling that I'm going a little bit kind of up and down in the swing, or better, down and up in the swing. We want this. We have a separation between what the hips are doing and what the shoulders are doing. So just because your hips are going up and down does not mean your head's going up and down and the distance from the ball is changing. There is a video for that somewhere in my portfolio. You're going to have to search for that one yourself though. But basically it's all about using what we call the move, this flexing and rotating of the hips to actually start the downward movement. And the quicker you can do that, the better. So it's probably a good idea to get kind of 10 or 15 reps going every morning and every evening, just to get your legs and your hips working a little bit better than they were before. If you take an alignment stick and pop it through the belt on your trousers, you will then be able to get a kind of an impression of how the hips are working relative to the shoulders. By holding another stick over your shoulders, you can see probably from the trail camera better down the line how there is a different angle in the angle of the hip rotation and the shoulder rotation. The shoulders are working on a steeper rotational plane. What we don't want to happen is for the shoulders, however, to get ahead of the hips. We want the hips moving ahead of the shoulders. So if I actually make the movement correctly, as I told you in the last video, getting the trail shoulder down towards the ball, rotating the hips in advance, and then the trail shoulder down towards the ball. Did I say trail twice? Sorry about that. Then you should have this satisfying connection between the sticks when the hip and shoulder rotation stops. You can't really get too much further round with the trail shoulder than where the middle of your stance, where the ball would be for your short irons. The collision between the two sticks, however, will probably happen before that, because your hips will not obviously be able to turn through 90 degrees unless you are doing a bit of a Dustin Johnson on it. But that's perfectly okay. You've got enough room to move your shoulders through as long as you get your hips out of the way and you've got around about 30 to 40 degrees of rotation in your hips, and that means that you're going to have a collision between the two sticks somewhere across from your trail thigh, and that, strangely enough, is going to be more or less the position you would like to be in at impact. So you can actually associate this kind of clicking that you hear between the two sticks with impact, and obviously the quicker that you can get down to impact, then the higher your rotational speed. If you think about those numbers again, an increase of 1 mile an hour of rotational speed is a 20% increase in club head speed. Shoulders moving at 5, hands moving at 30, club head moving at 100. It's around about 20% if I could get it up to 6. Most of you, however, are not going to be at 5 miles an hour. You're going to be at even down to as low as 1 or 2 miles an hour if you are struggling with distance. And by getting up that speed, slowly but surely over the winter months, you will be able to build your club head speed. And then if you do go out and buy yourself some of these weighted shafts, then you will know that your hips and shoulders are getting out of the way in time for your arms and hands to come through and hit the golf ball. There's no point in hitting the ball a long way if you don't find it. Even if it means you've got a little bit more dispersion because of the distance the golf ball goes, then that's great. However, if it's out of bounds or in the trees, then you're going to be struggling on the round, and that really has more to do with your ability to synchronize your hip speed, your shoulder speed with your hands and your club speed. And your hands and your club speed, although they're not totally dependent on hips and shoulder rotation, the sequence is so you can only govern the speed of the fastest moving component by the speed of the slowest moving component in your golf swing. I hope that makes sense to you. I'll be back next time explaining a little bit more about hand speed and how you can get that up as well. If you haven't subscribed to me yet, please do so. If you like the video, please hit the like button. That does help us. If you would like to support the channel, then you can sign up to my Patreon site and become a patron for the channel. I'd like to take this opportunity again of thanking all the patrons who've been supporting me over this season. Thank you very, very much. I'm very appreciative of it, and it does help me to get back here a little bit more often. I won't be long until I'm back again, so get out there, start your winter training now, and who knows what kind of power and speed you'll be generating in the new year. See you then.